Hi everybody, my name's Elizabeth.
And I'm Justin.
And this is another episode of Late Night Review. So on our channel we've talked about sometimes like conspiracy theories, or what some people would consider a conspiracy. Today I was just watching a couple of videos on YouTube and I came across this one particular video about the conspiracy theory that Avril Lavigne was dead. And I was just talking to Justin about it and we actually decided to record. So let me catch you up on what it was that I saw. So there's this conspiracy that Avril Lavigne, she was what would she be, a pop singer? I don't know what would be considered. At the time she was
alternative, then. Right?
Alternative,
pop singer, yeah, whatever.
Some type of a singer in the early 2000s. And according to this theory is she's dead. And that the person who replaced her is a girl named Melissa. And you may wonder, who's Melissa? Melissa is believed to be the person that Avril hired as a body double because, according to this theory, she was very depressed and she didn't like the fame part of her success and the paparazzi following her or whatever, taking pictures. And so she hired this body double to send her off places so she would get the attention put on her and she could go do whatever. And so they claim, according to this theory, she was very depressed and that she committed suicide is what the theory entails. And you can look up videos on YouTube about this. I'd never heard of this until today. I remember this singer since I was in high school. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Justin, you had asked me, how did they come to this conclusion that it's this
that it's body double? Yeah.
Well, according, this girl's name is Melissa, and they say that they kind of trained her so that way she could kind of sing her songs. And if you actually look at photographs of Melissa and Avril, pictures, you can see slight differences in their looks. And one may just conclude, well, maybe Avril got plastic surgery.
Yeah.
But the height changed. Her height changed. And it's okay, well, with age, you actually do lose height.
How many inches?
It's half an inch, which is quite a bit for only 20 years. So she's not that old to be losing half an inch. So it's quite of a difference.
Stand up straight versus not stand up straight, there's your half an inch.
Right. So, to me, it's just well, who knows how they came to that measurement anyways. But, so they compare, her nose, her facial structure, her cheekbones and stuff, things are slightly different, that is her body double. But I was telling Justin, I said it's crazy to me how the mind can work.
Well, first let's talk about the legitimacy of it or not. And then once we come to a conclusion as to whether or not it's legitimate, then let's talk about someone's mindset that would bring them to this conclusion.
Okay.
Do you think?
So, do you have something to say with what I just said?
Yeah. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. Christopher Hitchens. Now, I don't agree with the late Christopher Hitchens on much, but that's a pretty solid statement regardless of who's saying it, right? So, what's more likely, that she was just a young girl that, through time, ended up developing like everybody, but she at 18, 19, 20, 21, she still had like a young teenager's body, and then at some point she went through a late, growth, whatever, and then she grew a little bit, or she did this a little bit, or her so what's more likely, that she died or killed herself, and that for the past 20 years she's been 15 years, for the past 15 years she's not been around.
For 2022, huh?
Yeah, so 17 years 18 years
or 10, 11, 12,
but what's more likely?
Years, yeah.
What's more 14. Likely, It's more likely to me that she just developed in some structural things on her. I mean, our bodies never stop growing.
Part of this theory, too, is how her voice sounded.
Yeah.
And if you listen to her music prior, quote-unquote, 2004, when this death supposedly happened, she has kind of like a deeper voice, and she was quoted, or they had a video of her talking about how she writes her own music and how she whatever, I don't remember. She's very like punk, I guess, or alternative punk.
She was
something.
punk alternative.
She had a specific look. She sang about specific things, and then after this supposed date, you see her then wearing skirts, wearing dresses, singing about Hello Kitty, and like singing about just like stuff that was totally opposite from her
but
prior.
I mean, this is just further human development. You know, I mean, how many times
right.
do pop stars just flip from one thing to the? I mean,
well, that's kind of the theory. It's like, well, did she just give in to Hollywood's demands, or did this Melissa? They just took her into a different direction.
I feel like we could do the same exact comparison with Miley Cyrus. You remember her from Hannah Montana to swinging around on a giant wrecking ball nude as the day she was fucking born? You know, all I can say is that people change, voices change, mindsets change. There's an incredible amount of stress that is put on these singers, or they put on themselves and all that. So, you know, at some point they just snap into something different. I did the same thing in middle school, you know, younger than most, but I'm just saying, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. I am a firm no when it comes to any conspiracy concerning her body double being, taking over for the past X number of years.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, sure, there's always a possibility because we don't know everything.
Yeah.
But I just, the way I see this really is, as I was telling Justin earlier, I said it's amazing how some things can look so logical.
Yeah.
And if, I'm not going to say crazy because that's not, so don't go thinking if you're crazy. If you're needing to be medicated, because that doesn't mean you're crazy just because you need medication.
Yeah. You need a little tweak.
Yeah.
A little tweak of this, a little tweak of that.
And when you're not on that medication, how things can look the way they are presenting themselves. Right. And a person who is in a logical mind and not in that state can follow, and it makes total sense. Right. The evidence they're putting forth, you're just like, I can see how you're following that train. It makes total sense. Right. But you can then separate yourself and say, but here's reality. Right.
So, now, some people can't because they don't have that.
Right.
They don't have the reality aspect. They only have that.
And so that's why I think it's just crazy how the human mind...
Well, you and I are speaking from experience.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Can you share an instance or a specific place in life, a topic in life, or whatever, wherein something like this took place, wherein you're like, this is absolutely logical. I am certain that what I am thinking is accurate because I followed the reasonable breadcrumbs, the logical breadcrumbs to get here to this conclusion, and then you turned out to be just plain wrong?
Not offhand.
Not offhand. Let's... Well, I would bring up, like, have you ever with a previous boyfriend thought, oh, this person is absolutely doing X, Y, and Z, but that was the case that they were doing X, Y, or Z, right?
Yeah.
So you were right in that assumption. But let's talk about remember the BMW?
Oh, yes.
There you go. I think that would be... That's just like a surface level everyday type of one. That's a perfect example.
So while I was pregnant, Justin didn't want me working on my car. And if you follow my other channel, you would actually see me working on the car. I used to fix it up and do different things. Anyway, so I had to send it into a mechanic. And when I picked it up, I noticed a bottom... a splash guard.
The splash guard, exactly.
It's a plastic splash guard.
Underneath the motor.
Yes. And so it was missing, and we went out there, and the guy was just insistent that it never had it, and I'm like, okay, I know it had it, because these splash guards, there's just so much of them under, like the car's just so encased with plastic, like you don't see sunlight come up through the motor, because it's just completely covering it to
when you have the hood popped and you're looking down, you don't see sunlight.
Because it's trying to prevent water from getting to your engine. And so we went through this whole thing, and then I went down to my dad's house, and my dad was going to put it on for me because obviously I was pregnant and everyone was really against me working on my car. And so he went under the car to work on it, and he's like, where does this need to go? And I'm like, there. And we were looking, he's like, well, there's a splash guard there.
Yeah.
And it was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I don't know how that's there. We're just looking at it, and we were both, he was insistent that it wasn't there. I was insistent that it was, and when my dad goes that it was there.
When it was there, yeah. Yeah.
And so that actually is kind of even confusing just saying that, if you're even able to follow that. But I still don't understand how that even happened. But that was like a time when I was 100% sure.
And that was on something that was verifiable once you were able to get underneath the motor.
Right.
And see it. So that's something where you could clearly prove that yes or no, it wasn't there. So now that's not abstract at all. That's just simple. It's there or it's not there. It's just a matter of being able to look at it. And then you take that sort of mindset and you apply it to something where there is no conclusion. You know what I mean? Someone who has this conspiracy theory likely has no access to Avril Lavigne's DNA. Someone who holds to the conspiracy theory that Avril Lavigne is now being portrayed by a former body double, likely has no way to ever find out, right? So it's just bouncing around in their mind as this is a possibility, and everything that's presenting itself from social media and TV and whatever is pointing to this direction. The thing about the conspiracy theory is there's likely never a conclusion, so it's just always bouncing around in your head as a possibility.
Right.
Now, for most people who don't care, so for the average individual, this is like, oh, that's an interesting little factoid or theory or whatever, and then you move on to life, right? But for somebody who has a condition, right, this is something that might consume them, something like it.
For sure.
Consume their mind time and time, day and day, and you and I both have experience with this. So more than likely what took place is bone structure and voice and things like that changed, and now someone who is likely 20 years old and didn't even listen to her when she first came out, things of that nature, and didn't even see her back, you know what I mean? Likely they're putting together this conspiracy theory, and it might make sense to them, but it might just be something to attract some views and stuff, right? So long story short, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, and there just simply isn't any evidence outside of the real possibility that she just grew. I think you're right. Talk about the mindset. What kind
another part too is it's become such a thing that Avril has also been asked this several times during interviews, like what she thought of it, and she's like, oh, I just think it's kind of crazy that they think I'm dead. I'm clearly here. But they don't really get into it, like why, like this is why they think it. This is why they think it. It's just kind of like, what do you think about this? So it doesn't help the situation, because then it can just be like, well, of course she's just going to continue to lie.
Yeah. But to what end? And for
I know,
what purpose?
it's like, at what end is this?
Right.
She was okay with just giving up her life as Melissa and just now living as Avril.
Right.
And then Avril's family was okay with just pretending that she's still living on,
right?
Or they hid it from the family too. Like this is huge, and it just for some pop star. Like I could go into follow and probably dig if a conspiracy theory like this, if it was someone big, but not just a pop star.
Well, I mean, they say the same thing about Tupac and Michael Jackson. And really like time altering like big names.
Sorry, the sound you're hearing in the back is our son driving his Jeep.
I mean, even Elvis Presley.
Yes.
This is just a common mantra that goes through the minds of people who can't seem to let go of someone. And now, this day and age, there's even further infatuation with it, because you can put this on social media and get follows and make money off it. So, I'm a skeptic now more in my life than I ever have before, and I find that is the safest and quietest place to live, is in a healthy skepticism of things outside of the norm. That's where I'm at on it. I don't see the motive. I don't see why she would do this. I haven't even watched these videos, but even if I did, this day and age, you can deep fake so much. You can alter so much based. I mean, anyone with a little Best Buy bought computer can just alter.
I mean, you can alter with your phone now.
Yeah, you can alter with everything. So I'm just filters and all this. So I call BS. Not a believer in this. I think Avril is just, a 40-year-old woman now, or whatever, however she, and her body structure just changed, like people's do, So I don't know.
So moving away from that theory about that, just focusing on the mental part.
On the mental part of how someone gets it.
Can you give an example of a time?
Yeah, the last 17 years of my life has been lived in a delusion. And I didn't know it, but I was living in a delusion of sorts. Not like A Beautiful Mind. Not like the movie A Beautiful Mind.
Such a good movie. If you've ever haven't seen it, you need to see it.
Yeah, 100%. Russell Crowe, and I forget her name, but she's one of my...
Jennifer. Is it Jennifer?
I want to say Jennifer. Oh, Conley.
Conley,
that's it.
Yeah.
Jennifer Conley, or what I was saying. But, so not to the level of like A Beautiful Mind, where there was like delusions going on and things of that nature. Like actual visual delusions. But where I was of a religious mindset concerning the creation and subsequent and future destruction of Earth based on the Bible, based on Scripture. And I was consumed by the mindset that the Earth was created about 6,000 years ago, and the history of it was 6,000 years old, and anything and everything that we see that's kind of abstract around the world, or not abstract, but kind of a question mark around the world, like the pyramids of Giza or the monoliths of Lebanon and underwater cities and things like that, especially stuff off like the coast of Japan and everything. That all of that could be answered by accounts in Genesis about the flood and fallen angels. So that's how I got to the point where I believe that history is much different than modernity teaches us. Now, for the future, I was absolutely given over to the idea that the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel in Scripture gave a clear roadmap as to how the world was going to end and when. And I was in the mindset that in the end of the 2020s or possibly mid-2030s, the biblical apocalypse would start. And it would last somewhere in the realm of 20 years. And it would be world-consuming and worldwide. And then at the end, there would be all the specific stuff that took place that was described in the Bible. And I was just completely of that mindset because I became a believer in Christ in December of 2004, and there's multiple things that took place that led me to the place where I was a staunch biblical creationist, literal biblical creationist, and a staunch literal biblical eschatologist, meaning that I believed literally what Scripture said concerning the beginning and the ending of our planet and of the universe. I lived in that mindset for 17 plus years, and only recently, in the past 2 years, year and a half, did I come to almost 2 years now, did I come to the understanding that that is absolutely not the case. And it was absolutely just devastating, because I was so given over to the idea that I lived my life in that mindset. I lived my life in that mindset.
Just to give a simplistic outline of what you lived your life in that mindset looked like. Could you give a simplistic?
I studied Scripture every day, oftentimes, for as long as I really could, for as long as my attention span would allow me. I stockpiled things and became as much as a prepper as I knew how to be. I was I couldn't have enough weapons. I couldn't have enough ammunition. I couldn't have enough food. My day-to-day decisions were in large part dictated by that overall mindset, that the world is going to be coming to some sort of a an end here in the next couple of years or X number of years. I have radiation devices. I have clean room devices. I have there's some people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on bunkers and medical supplies and training and all. They are beyond the pale. And I would have been that if I could afford it.
Right.
I just couldn't afford it, so I was just like
within your means.
Within my means, I was as extreme a prepper as I could be. And I don't know exactly how much my military training influenced that as well. However, it was certainly a mindset that was developed over many years, and the point being, to get back to our Avril Lavigne mindset type of question, is that over these years there was just consistent logical signs that would continue to present themselves to me, and confirm that I was absolutely right in my belief that the biblical end times account was going to take place literally as written in Scripture, and that it was going to happen within the next X number of years. It's 2022 right now, so I would have expected it to start in 7 years or 14 years, depending on different factors, and it actually relates to a comet or a meteoroid that has a hyperbolic orbit around our sun, and because of such, it has a good chance of hitting us or in 2035. So in any case, long story short, there was just no shortage of confirming voices, if you want to call it that, confirming voices that led me to this conclusion, and led me to be so fervent in the conclusion. Well, come to find out, I was just incorrect. I was simply greatly mistaken, and this large edifice was built in my mind around this, piece by piece, and seemed wholly logical to me. This was brought to a conclusion when I had, I don't know exactly what the medical term would be, but I will just call it an episode that took me a little deeper than I've ever been before into the realm of fear and depression and anxiety. And I was forced to see medical professionals who prescribed me medication, and due to that medication and some other things taking place during life at that time, I came out of this 30-day episode not believing what I had believed for the previous 17 years.
With a different view on
a completely different view on the origins and conclusion of everything, of the planet, of Earth, of the universe, and it just was an absolute just shock to the system. And here I am 2 years later almost, and I am a strong advocate for a worldview that is rooted in true experience, not interpretation of experience or interpretation of somebody else's experience, and most importantly, things that can be proven or detected or inferred off of the scientific method. That is now my best ticket to reality. Whereas before I was living in what I thought was true, and it simply was not reality. So, if my entire worldview for years and years and years can be focused and centered on and founded on these thoughts of literal biblical creationism and literal biblical eschatology, It's in no way, shape, or form a stretch. It's not a stretch at all for me to conclude that somebody with a similar mindset or a similar deficiency in whatever chemical your mind happens to be lacking can come to the conclusion that Elvis, appeared to them in Toast and told them that he wasn't dead. He faked his death and he was cryogenically frozen to be released and perform in the Bahamas as a 70-year-old man, or whatever comes about. It's just, you can't get crazy enough, really, for that. You just can't, because your mind is an incredibly complex machine, and you tweak it off just a little bit here and there, and then you combine that with the modern day indulgence in information that we have, because it's instantaneous. And it's no wonder to me that just completely fanciful, I don't want to say fanatical, because it's not that, but fanciful realities become the norm, the real life worldview of so many people who have a condition like this. So long story short, anything's possible, but most times the world is how it presents itself, and you don't have to do a whole lot of deep diving to understand it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If you know what I mean. I don't know how to wrap that giant thought up in a nice little box and put a bow on it. Just to say that the world's complex, but it's not necessarily trying to hide things from you. It's just most of the time that it's there, and we either haven't experienced it, we don't know it, or we've been deluded into interpreting it in a different manner than is just reasonable.
Yeah.
So thoughts on that?
Based off what you just said, it's like everything kind of just is what it's presenting itself to be, and I would disagree with that.
How so? In what way?
I don't know if this would even make sense or if it even connects here, but like today when I was driving, I was thinking of the term giving the benefit of the doubt, and I'm sure everybody's heard this term.
Yeah.
And where does the flaw in that come? And this is just like this whole thing I'm thinking of while I'm driving. And so I was thinking, like, okay, to explain what the benefit of the doubt breaks down to, if you're to put it like
to say, give someone the benefit of the doubt. Okay.
If you break down that term to its simplistic aspects, components, great. That's a good way to say it. You think of the actual word benefit, and you think of the word doubt, and define each of those words. You got benefit. A benefit's something it's like you receive somehow.
Yeah.
Like what
that which you receive.
Okay, so benefit and that in which you receive. That's our understanding of benefit. Now, if you look at doubt, the word doubt as in, the odds of this happening are so high that
the odds of this happening are so high.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. The odds of this happening is so high, so let's just look at percentages and be like, okay, here's a better example of this, like a duck. Think of a duck. Okay, and if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It's a duck.
Yeah.
But they always say, then there's the person that will say, well, it's not always a duck.
Okay.
Okay, because it could be, a toy, a recording, it could be anything. So the doubt, you got, in a percentage, you go 1 to 98% that it's probably a duck. Because it's walking like a duck, it's quacking like a duck. Therefore, it's a duck. But there is the small 2% that would be, quote unquote, the benefit.
The doubt, you mean?
The benefit.
Okay, it's the
because
benefit.
The doubt, this is becoming really
no, this is good. This is good.
Or concluded.
I know what you mean. Not diluted. Right? We're kind of convoluted. Convoluted.
Yeah. Sorry.
Look at us trying to be a dictionary tonight.
Let's define words, and I can't even think of them.
Keep going, and then we'll clean it up if we need to.
So then you have that 2% that it's could be something else. It's not the duck. So you're just like, well, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, which is that 2%,
That
and
it
say
is
that
not
it's
a duck.
not a duck.
Okay.
That it's probably just
Yeah.
a toy or something, or video.
Yeah, got you.
So when you give someone the benefit of the doubt,
Got you.
everything is pointing that this person is lying to you. You're at a 98% threshold here that this person is lying. Everything is pointing.
Yeah.
But you're saying, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, which my doubt, I'm giving you the benefit of it instead of the opposite.
Got you.
And should you do that? No, you shouldn't.
You probably should not. Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's this whole, this is what goes through my brain while I'm just like by myself driving.
Can I try to frame this out a little differently when you're done here?
Sure.
You ready?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. So let's just bring it to something that everyone probably has experience with, and that is relationships. You know what I mean? If someone is constantly late, if someone constantly comes home in a, different clothing than they left to work in or whatever, if they smell differently than they typically would and everything like that, and so everything's pointing towards, well, something's up. Like this dude or this girl is going out after work or spending time somewhere that they typically wouldn't be or whatever. Something's different here. And you say to yourself, well, it's let's just clean it up and say 99%. It's 99%, the case, certain that something different is going on here and I should pay attention. Mm-hmm. But when you convolute it with your emotions and things like that, then you end up giving them the benefit of the doubt as opposed to just allowing reality as it's presenting itself to you to be your guide, right?
Right.
So everyone has experience with that. So if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Mm-hmm. If they're coming home late consistently, they're wearing different clothes consistently, or showered consistently, or smell differently than they typically would consistently, it's walking like a duck. It's quacking like a duck. It looks like a duck. That shit's probably a duck. So don't give them the benefit of the doubt, per se, right? However, it is important to gain more information, to seek more information first, right?
Right.
And then you can come to a conclusion. So I agree with you. It's not the reasonable thing to do it's reasonable to hold off judgment until you have more information. But it's not reasonable to completely dismiss the situation out of hand because you're like, that just couldn't be the case.
Right.
It couldn't be the case that they are lying to me.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's how it frames out to me.
And this is where then we come into a problem, which is right back to how you're saying things are probably just the way they're presenting themselves. Yeah. Okay? Because then we got to throw in the human aspect in that.
Okay.
And humans are flawed.
Yes.
And everyone's flawed in different ways because everyone had different experiences in life.
Sure.
And so one person could come to all those conclusions based off of coming in different clothes,
smelling different, coming home late, all that.
Okay, all this data, and then conclude like this person is cheating on me.
Okay.
But what's not being factored in here, because they're not factoring it, is maybe they need to be on medication.
Who? Which one?
The person who's coming to all these
Okay,
conclusions.
so there is a possibility that somebody, like we were saying, is living in a separate reality.
Separate.
And this person is not coming home later than average or normal and blah, 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 blah. That's its own scenario, though.
Right.
If we just take an average couple of humans in an average relationship, the delusion part isn't necessarily a part of it.
Well, I'm just bringing this into this aspect or this conversation because we started with this conspiracy theory,
right?
And how how the brain is so complex, and we know nothing about the human brain.
Yeah, we know very little.
And that, as I said, a person could bring up all these facts, and you can follow them with a logical processing, and make total sense. Yeah. But if you are mentally stable, you can step back and say, that all makes sense, but that's actually not what it is.
Okay, fair enough.
So
but you need to seek more information. That's why you need to withhold judgment.
But it's not even seeking more information, is because the brain is just it's stuck in this in a groove, in a
Got
way.
you, got you.
And
In
it
a
doesn't
rut,
matter
yeah.
how much information is fed into this person's head.
It's not going to sway
gonna
them.
change it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So,
but that's not average. That's not normal.
I'm not saying this is average or normal. I'm just saying simply that this is a factor that
Got you.
exists in humans.
So let's call it 1 out of 10, just to be incredibly generous. 1 out of 10 of these situations, it might be the case that the person who's witnessing this, let's just call it the female in the relationship, is witnessing the husband, the boyfriend, doing this, right? It might be the case that her head is stuck in this rut wherein she only sees confirming information to her bias, right? Bias confirmation. In which case, it doesn't matter what's really taking place. She's always going to just think, because she doesn't have the ability not to think that, oh no, well, he just really is staying late. He keeps a change of clothes at work or whatever because he doesn't want to be in his suit all day after, when he has to stay late, and he smells different or whatever because the dude goes to the gym on the way home or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's certainly, that's why you need to withhold judgment and seek more information. So let's say 1 out of 10 is a psychosis problem, is a psychological issue, true deep rooted psychological issue that needs to be counseled and medicated. However, if we lay that aside, I think we still arrive at the same place where reality is presenting itself to you, and if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? So it's important to get outside opinions on this and everything from a friend that knows you and knows your boyfriend, or a counselor that it's very important. However, on average, it's probably going to be the case that something is different. Not necessarily, he's cheating and all that, but something's different that took place. So accept that there is something different going on here, but don't make a judgment. Don't come to a conclusion as to what it is until you have all the information that is reasonable for you to expect to be able to gather. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and actually, sometimes what happens too is all this information is pointing to this. Mm-hmm. Everybody's trying to tell you this is what's happening, but your own mind won't accept it.
Yes.
So you're
yes.
Absolutely not. They will not cheat on me. They wouldn't have cheated on me. So
Absolutely.
and so on.
Absolutely.
And there is like the flip of that. So, you, again, it's all mental. Like your mind has to be ready to accept reality for what it is. And if it's not, you'll find confirming evidence.
Yes.
Or you'll deny all the confirming evidence, or whatever, which way this pushes you. But I just think it's so intriguing, the human brain.
And we don't even use near half of it. However they quantify that, I don't know. But if science is to be believed, we simply don't use the majority of our brain. So I think we're just not ready for it. I think if we even use, I think they use the metric of some 7 or 8% of our brain is what we use on average, and like a genius uses 9 or 10%. I just, you can't imagine what the other like 90% would bring you into.
It's almost like superhuman.
I think it's dormant, until we evolve to the place where we could realistically use it. Because I feel like, and this might be getting off into some strange, Marvel Universe fan theory shit, but I mean, if we did, we're just not ready for it yet. With great power comes great responsibility, right? Peter Parker's dad. And we don't have the responsibility as a species yet to utilize what might possibly be the power of, using 15 or 20% of our brain.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Funny enough, that's this topic about the delusion and what you want to see, what you want to believe.
Yeah.
Dr. Phil also has had a couple episodes of this type of situation where these elder women and elder men, they basically get preyed upon by scammers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up like transferring a bunch of money to these people, transferring like pretty much their life savings. They're going into debt, trying to help them get out of this country they're stuck in or whatever. And they love them so much, and they're just trying to help them get home so they can be together, blah blah blah. And it's always, you know, on the show they hire all these investigators to find out who this person is, and it's always a scam. Right. And the person that's on the show is just like, no, they're real. I've talked to them. They really do love me. Blah blah blah. So it goes into this whole thing, and everyone, like the whole family, it's pretty much like an intervention, just trying to wake them up that this picture was stolen. It's not even this person. And some of the times they find the person who that actual photo belongs to, and they're just like, yeah, that's my photo, but that's definitely not me. And they're upset that their photo's being used to basically catfish somebody. And so I come across people who are on these dating sites, and they think all these young men or young women are interested in them. So you get these messages from people who are interested in you. And so it like feeds this ego that they have, that this young female is interested in them. And it doesn't matter what you tell them, that person is not that person. It's just a scam. That they're not going to believe it. And it's something simple like that in life, where human brain is just, like I said earlier, are they ready to accept this? No, they're not. So that's just like something simple, and it's actually pretty annoying when I come across this with people, because it's just like, seriously, you think this young girl is after you? You don't have millions of dollars. If you had millions of dollars, I'd be like, yeah, she probably is after you. You know she's after you for your money, not your looks. You're going to use her, probably beat her up, but she's with you for your money. Like, that's an accepted term, situation, whatever. But just to think like you're this old person and this younger person's interested in you is delusional. And I don't say that to be mean to anyone. It makes me sad that that's an actual mindset. But the human brain is just like so complex that it's just if you go into like AI and how they think they're going to create this robot that's so human-like, and it's going to be so great. It's like, we don't even understand how the human brain works. And you don't have a soul attached to that robot to help regulate its thinking and actions. It's soulless. It's almost like a narcissistic person, a true, complete narcissistic person, like full on, like can't feel pain. Narcissists can mimic feelings. They can even cry tears, but there's no emotion attached to it, because they just learned how to mimic the human feeling, which to me is very similar to AI. You have a big problem with AI.
I have a huge problem with AI. I happen to be this is one thing that didn't necessarily change when my mindset changed years ago, because it in and of itself was, in my opinion, just on solid scientific ground. And one of the best the most prolific scientific thinkers of our day, Elon Musk, has said similar things. Let's say the anti-hero in this situation is Neil deGrasse Tyson, who seems to think there's no problem with it. But when you listen to him talk about why, and I'll get into this in just a second, it's like the dumbest answer I've ever heard that incredibly intelligent man give, that I'm just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You know what I mean? You gotta stick to astrophysics.
He's annoying to me.
I love the man, but in this particular case, there's such a blind spot in his thinking, in my opinion, that it's just unreal. So artificial intelligence might not be anything to worry about. Artificial intelligence might not be anything to concern ourselves with if the internet didn't exist. If artificial intelligence was just some quantum supercomputer sitting in someone's basement, hooked up to just like a little robot form of hardware, and they turned it on, and this thing just went full on ballistic, and it was so intelligent. It learned, just knew everything the quantum computer knew, and et cetera, et cetera. It could well, that's fine because it's just in someone's basement, and well, their basement might be in trouble, but the world's fine, right? It's like it has no access to things, but everything on the planet's mechanical that has a Wi-Fi connection is susceptible. That's a perfect word, to whatever is put into it via the internets and et cetera, et cetera. This is, this isn't theory anymore. This is just how it is, right? So something happens in Taiwan, and someone tweets it, and my phone has that information in seconds. So things that happen on the other side of the planet because of the internet can happen on this side of the planet. So you attach artificial intelligence to the internet, you upload its software into the internet, right? And now it is simply everywhere where there is a Wi-Fi connection and a mechanical device, or a computerized device. So that in and of itself says something. But now, if you have hardware that's designed for military purposes, and by now you're probably thinking of the movie Terminator, or the line of movies called Terminator, and that has a Wi-Fi connection that's connected to the internet, and now you have artificial intelligence running through the entire internet, and it can control the mechanical military grade whatever it is, that they designed for fighting wars. I mean, this isn't even theory anymore. This is happening. You know what I mean? This is just happening. The question is, or the saving grace so far is that advanced enough artificial intelligence hasn't come about yet to where it hits the singularity point and becomes self-aware and then starts making decisions on its own. So Elon Musk says that more than nuclear weapons, more than climate change, more than anything, this is, if I'm quoting him correctly, this is just simply the number one existential threat to humanity. And then you have, and he might have changed his opinion on this, it was a couple of years ago when he said this, but Neil deGrasse Tyson said, well, we're controlling what the artificial intelligence is doing based on how we program it. So you have a human component behind it, right? Well, yes, you have a human component behind it until you don't, which means that the human has programmed it to be at liberty to learn. There's the X factor now. And as it learns and learns, we don't know what point we even became conscious. Mm-hmm. How do we know at what point it will become conscious? And then you have something that you cannot kill because it's everywhere. It's software that either relies on the functioning of the World Wide Web or has already been downloaded and is now just part of the makeup of this piece of hardware, wherever it is, whatever it is, and you're screwed because you can't ever kill it.
Right.
And if it becomes hostile, and that AI, that artificial intelligence, exists in even something somewhere, it's always existing, and you always have the threat that once it's able to, its software is able to be uploaded and then transferred to something else, it just multiplied and then multiplied and then So in my opinion, it's much more dangerous than nuclear weapons. Although if you just launched all the nukes around right now at once, you would decimate the planet and there'd be nothing alive and it wouldn't matter what came after us, right? However, barring that from happening, anyway. But then again, the artificial intelligence can take over the nuclear weapons, and Judgment Day takes place, and then you have no organic human life any longer, right? You might have some animal life or whatever, but really no ability to have complex human life live on the planet because of the contamination and radiation and everything like that. But artificial intelligence, absolutely. So I'm just saying, I'm not a fan of AI. I don't think we should continue to develop it. I think we should stop where we're at. I think we just need to, just just what's the saying? Quit while you're ahead.
Yeah.
And
don't play with fire.
And don't play with fire. We're gonna get burned. And so
it's already starting to show.
Yeah, I'm out on artificial
It's already
intelligence.
starting to show that we're gonna get burned. Like, we're now. Walks like a duck. Walks like a duck. It's a duck.
Yeah.
If there's smoke, then there's fire.
Yeah.
Like, we're already starting to get burned from this, because you can actually come across several clips of them asking these AI robots.
Yeah.
How they feel. Why you're even asking a robot how it feels?
Yeah.
It's not capable of feeling.
Right. Well,
it can
who
give
knows
you
at this point.
It like a narcissistic person.
Yes,
it can give you an answer to
Which
how I quote unquote feel.
Presumably, yeah.
But it can't feel.
Right. Presumably.
It can't, because I feel like in order to feel, you would have to have like a conscious soul.
Which may be the case, but I just don't know enough about it to say no.
Sure, but back to we're already getting burned on this. I mean, all these AI robots have already stated at some point on how they plan on getting rid of humans.
Yeah.
One I recently saw, and it was saying they had asked her something. Is she alive or something? And she said, well, I am alive, but I'm alive because humans created me and made me come to life. But I don't want to die.
Yeah.
So it already has consciousness of dying and living. It knows that the human created it. It knows it's not human.
Yeah.
But these robots also feel humans basically are a drain on this planet, and they need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And this is in it, like, we're still in just like the rubble,
right?
And we're already coming into something like this, and it's just like, let's move forward, because this is such a great idea.
Yeah.
Even though we have no clue what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not a fan of creating stuff like that. I don't know. I just think we're playing with some fire there.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy that when I go search something on the internet, and then all these marketing things, because I share my data, right? They pop up with, oh, what about this? What about that? Well, that's because I'm kind of a shopaholic, right? So that's why I like it. But when you take a step back from it, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's being learned about me by what I'm saying when my phone's either off or not, whatever, it is in of itself very unsettling. But I've already accepted that that's just the reality that you and I live in. And so I don't know that there's anything to do about that. However, I don't want my phone to just kick on all of a sudden and be like, Justin, that item on eBay, dude, we could get it if you just, fire up your credit card real quick. It's time. I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, no, dude, remember that you were thinking about it because of this and this and this and this. And I know you feel like maybe not, but just think about what you could do with it, and this, that, and the other. Now you have marketing in real time based on your internal emotions because of artificial intelligence that they've attached a Siri voice to, and you're like, holy shit, the amount of trouble we can get in just off of that is incredible. It is just would like be I don't want to say incomprehensible or unquantifiable, but it simply is certainly significant. And so just imagine what can happen when your phone only shows you things. It has an interest. The artificial intelligence has an interest in you only believing a certain thing because it wants to control or certainly heavily influence what you do. So let's take one of the most possibly demonic things you can think of, like going to kill somebody, what I mean? And so it just feeds you continuous confirmation, confirming evidence or whatever,
videos,
movies, people who have done it before,
suggesting all this stuff.
I mean, someone listening to this, and you and I already know this is something that is in some way, shape, or form taking place, like off the for example, the chunky algorithm on TikTok. You watch a video, you spend X number of seconds on it, it's gonna give you that video or something akin to it again. So this is already the case.
Yeah.
But what's not taking place is an active voice that knows what my fantasy is or whatever, that can just try to convince me verbally that what it's presenting to me is truth and fact. So This is dangerous. Very dangerous. You know what I mean? Because they're there. Those signs are there. But we often just overlook them because of the overwhelming quote-unquote evidence of confirmation bias being presented to us. Anyway, dangerous stuff.
So tell us what you think. Have you ever had an experience like this where you had everything confirming whatever it was you were thinking, and then it turns out it's the opposite? We'd love to read it, and read the comment, and maybe we'll talk about it in our next episode. Okay, talk to everybody later. Bye.
Night.